Welcome to 5 Minutes, your quick dive into the wide-ranging world of insurance, technology, and leadership. I'm Miguel Edwards, and I'll be your guide as we explore these topics that are transforming not just the insurance industry, but the business world at large. Along with sharing observations I've made over the span of my career in insurance, technology, and operations, I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in business and leadership. Whether you're a seasoned executive or a rising star, an industry expert, or just curious about how technology is revolutionizing insurance, this is your perfect spot for your weekly dose of insights. This is 5 Minutes.
What is data actually trying to do, right? Because I feel like we're in an intersection point now where like consumers and insurers expect that, hey, if I'm going to have a claim, how can you prevent claims from happening?
Right.
So this is where it's changed, right? And I see it firsthand is I feel like this protection, it's I want to avoid losses from happening. How can insurance care through access of 150 years of data,
Right.
HSB, Travelers, Plymouth Rock, the Hartford, you've collected everything, right? Why do I have to use you after a claim has happened? What can you do through access of your own data with all these other external factors to be able to prevent those losses from happening, or at least diminish and reduce those losses? And I was just reading an article, I think this year in 2024, we've had the largest reduction of auto accidents since in the last 2 decades.
Really?
And there's been all this monitoring that's happening now in cars,
Right.
and all these alerts that are happening. It's becoming drivers safer, and then your accidents are becoming preventable.
Interesting, except for Tesla drivers.
Yeah,
That's
Matter of fact, John Riggs was on stage yesterday, and he was talking about all of the IoT that's deployed in commercial buildings. And it's funny, I caught him on the lunch line, and I asked him a question. I said, for all those IoT devices that you're deploying, who owns the data? Because I was thinking, if I own a commercial establishment and you're putting all these sensors, I'd like to have that data. And he's like, well, he suggested, absolutely, the customer owns the data.
That's right.
But they have to request it. We'll provide it to them, but they get to use the data. So now it's a really fascinating point that you were making around where do you get the data from. So now we've got IoT everywhere. We've got the cars with the telematics, and then it's about the creativity and how you put that use case together.
Yeah, and I'm obsessed with this idea of data for resilience, right? So it's really good for us, and it's really good for the customers, right? If we prevent the risks, we can be more effective, we can price better, we can reach solvency, we can make a profit, and they also don't have to go through it.
Yes.
And so I love this idea of, instead of using it just for pricing, underwriting claims, right? Can we also use it to create preventative situations or make a pool that is not as good become better? And that's a place where I don't think we've been as good traditionally, and would really love to see, if I think about what I want to see from InsurTech, that's what I want to see.
exactly right.
Yes.
And not just, here's another tool.
Yes. Yeah. So, and by the way, and that's another fascinating use case, because if you think about taking the aggregate of all of that data, and obviously you anonymize it, but then you create loss prevention programs that you can then take back to a landlord, you can take back to a building or facility manager or a homeowner and say, these are the things that you need to be thinking about, and here's the data that show what happens when you don't pay attention to these dynamics. And then, by the way, think about the value that creates for you as a carrier, bringing additional value to your customer, even if it's just strong emotional connection to a carrier that cares about me, that type of thing. There's all that opportunity.
Yeah, you can relate, right? I mean, at lunchtime, I was just giving you the example about Plymouth Rock. I had my auto insurance with Plymouth, and they have this app where if you're driving safely, they give you $10 Amazon gift cards, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously as a driver, I'm not driving as much since COVID has happened, but it's actually made me more resilient and aware of like my driving habits.
Right.
And yeah, there's other things that are impact, but actually that $10 Amazon card, I'm like, I want to keep a really good record because I keep spending so much money on Amazon, and I know Plymouth Rock's got my back. Right. So it's just so convenient that we were just talking about that.
Absolutely.
I think Plymouth would actually want me to send them Amazon gift cards if they saw how I drove. so I am not a target client for that. I mean, because I worked at Allstate, and we had drive-wise, and they wanted me. I was like, probably not. You might fire me if you saw how I drove.
Well, and I think that's the cool thing about thinking about the different lines of business too, because there's lines like driving where you're constantly doing stuff, but then there's lines like home where some of the preventative pieces aren't, I'm doing something actively bad. It's just something's going on in the walls of your house, right? That you're not aware of. And so that's why I love this like data resilience piece, because you can prevent those accidents by behaviors, and then you can also prevent those accidents by, oh, I didn't know that, you know, my water was leaking or my electricity was poorly wired, or, you know, I bought this house and I read the Zillow report.
Right.
So I think a lot of those things are really exciting and will add a ton of value to the industry, and less people thinking you take this money and then when I'm in the worst time possible, I don't know what I'm getting back. More, oh, you're helping me through the process.
Right.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.